Hey y'all, it's Dree. So there's a phase that comes after your body finishes all that processing and purging and uncomfortableness. What comes after that, a lot of people misinterpret. They think that once they have set boundaries and have allowed their bodies to process the grief, and once they are stabilized, that life is simply magically going to improve. But improvement, that's not the next phase. Because what happens first is receiving, being able to receive, opening yourself to receiving. That's the next phase. Because whether or not you realize it, receiving, that's far more uncomfortable than people probably initially would expect. I know it was a lot more uncomfortable for me. Because if you have lived in survival like I had, then you know, or you are becoming to realize that your nervous system has been wired to brace. You're noticing that you are wired to anticipate loss. And you are wired to anticipate disappointment, withdrawal. So, when something steady appears, when something supportive comes in, and when something aligned arrives, your nervous system, it does not relax. Instead, it scans, it waits, and it looks for something to shift. You see, receiving, that requires a nervous system that believes that it is safe to have, not safe to survive, but safe to have. And there is a difference, because survival says, I can manage this. But receiving, that says, I can allow this. And for many people, allowing, that feels more vulnerable than fighting. Because when you are fighting, you are in control. And when you are bracing, you are prepared. When you are surviving, you are powerful in a familiar kind of way. But when you receive, you are open. You are undefended. And you are definitely not anticipating any kind of collapse. And that can feel terrifying if collapse has been your norm. And this is exactly why people sabotage stability. This is why they overwork when things get calm. This is why they pick fights when things feel steady. And this is why they withdraw when something or someone shows up consistently. Because you see, receiving, that requires trust. And it's not trust in another person, but it's more so trust in your own capacity to remain steady if something changes. Receiving, it's not about believing nothing is going to go wrong. It's more about knowing that you will remain intact if it does. And that is a big difference. Because when you have done your boundary work and when your body has processed everything that it was holding, the next expansion for you is allowing something good to actually land. And that landing, it will feel foreign. You may feel restless. You may feel even suspicious. You may feel the urge to create movement where there is none. And that does not mean the situation is unsafe. It just means your nervous system is adjusting to peace. And how do you know that? Well, peace is quiet. Peace does not it doesn't spike adrenaline. Peace also doesn't demand any vigilance. Which is so big. I lost my train of thought. I was just thinking about vigilance and how I didn't even know what vigilance was until I was able to heal from it. Peace. What else? Peace doesn't require proving. And your system, that might intentionally, or not intentionally, it might initially interpret peace as something is missing. Because peace happens when you have room. And I can tell you clearly, nothing is missing. What's happening is that you're simply not bracing anymore. You see, receiving is the skill of staying when nothing is wrong. Receiving is the skill of allowing support without earning it. And receiving is the skill of letting something be steady without testing it first. And this, all of this, it cannot be forced. It can only be practiced. And you practice by noticing when you feel like you want to brace. You practice by noticing when you feel the urge like you want to control. And you practice by noticing when you want to prove yourself. And instead of acting on those things, instead, what you do, you pause. You breathe. And then you allow. Because receiving is not passive. It is regulated openness. It is the decision to remain present without tightening. It is having strength without any armor. I'm sorry, I keep messing with my phone. It's just glitching out on me. I think I need to go get a new one because it's just started happening in the last 2 weeks. And anyways, I'm sorry. Receiving is also the decision to remain present without tightening in a moment. When you master receiving, you stop chasing. You stop convincing. And mostly, you stop performing. Because you no longer need to secure what is already aligned. You simply allow it to meet you. And this is not weakness. This is expansion. There is nothing wrong with you if you feel like receiving it feels harder than surviving even. Surviving, that was familiar. And receiving, well, receiving is new. But know this, your system is capable of recalibrating. Just like once upon a time, it learned to brace, it can also learn to soften. And when, it just went out again. I don't know what. When your system learns to recalibrate, once it knows that it's safe, you're going to discover that the stability you were fighting for, it was never built through effort. It was built through allowing. And once you figure that out, that is when the body gets in touch with the brain. And once those things start communicating with each other, that's when real, physical, tangible, energy meets you exactly where you are, which is powerful. And you're only going to know how powerful it is when you experience it. When you've lived a life without receiving, and then suddenly you're able, it's like somebody flipping on the switch in a dark room where you've been sitting your whole life. Yep. We're doing big things. Bigger than you probably realized up until now. So remember, where there is love, there is light. And slowly but surely, I know, together, we're all gonna arrive. I'll catch you all in the next one.